can't be surprised that the Bills lost to the New England Patriots.
No, not at all. I mean, it was to be expected that they would lose.
They were 13-point underdogs going into the game. Now, granted, the Las Vegas odds makers have really liked the Patriots this year, especially in the division, and 13 points seemed pretty high, but, I mean, just for the game to go the way it didn't seem right. I don't know if that's fair.
It felt fixed.
I hate,
it really did.
I hate being that 4-year-old jumping up and down saying, it's not fair, it's not fair.
But it wasn't. The Bills were playing two teams yesterday.
And the much more formidable of the two was the referees.
Yes, actually, that's a sad part.
Do you think that orders come down from on top in the NFL? Like, the Bills do not beat the Patriots at home, refs. You make sure this happens? Or is it just like an individual bias? Or is Bill Belichick got the refs all so scared that they won't call against him?
You know what? It might just be a bribery scandal like the NBA.
A gambling thing?
It could be. I mean, the NFL has had a history of gambling, though it's been 40 years, 50 years, I should say, since there has been a major scandal exposed. But you have officials that are calling such blatantly one-sided calls, and some of them are outrageous calls to begin with. To go through, early in the game, you had calls on Cordy Glenn and Chris Hairston for holding, but you could see the New England team getting away with a lot more. That's not fair. If you're going to call it right both ways. If you're going to not call it, don't call it both ways.
It's like a strike zone. An ump can have a big strike zone, a real narrow strike zone, but
be consistent.
As long as it's the same for both teams, it's not going to affect the outcome of the game.
Exactly.
In the NFL, it's a league where the penalties are so subjective, and the penalties happen so frequently and are overlooked or not noticed on such an inconsistent basis that to call it so one-sided against the Bills is just preposterous.
What, 14 penalties to 1 in the first half? That's freaking ridiculous. I'm not going to argue when you have false start penalties. That's obvious. Stuff of that nature. You delay a game, I'm not going to argue too much, though I'm surprised they didn't grant the timeout for that one.
Pass interference when the ball is thrown out of the end zone, though.
Okay.
Like Tom Brady is so good, and he can make his players catch any ball ever, and so if they're ever touched, it's a pass interference.
Not even just that. The one where Brandon Lloyd runs into Gilmore, and Gilmore gets the pass interference call. Or another one where the receiver runs into George Wilson, the ball's 10 yards to the side. Or another one where Jarvis Bird gets called for pass interference when, yeah, he held. That would have been the proper call. The ball was 20 yards past him. That should not have been pass interference. Should never have been called. Those are terrible calls. Another one that really set me off, Ron Brooks got wrestled out of bounds, absolutely thrown out of bounds on a punt. He gets a 15-yard penalty for running out of bounds.
You know what's funny on that, too, is that the punt was right on out of bounds. Like, he did not run out of bounds at all. Like, he ran the straight line from where he was pushed to the ball, which was basically on the goal line.
Right on the intersection of the field and out of bounds.
It's not like he was swerving out to get out of the way of blockers. Like, he was doing his football instinctual, shortest line to the ball. It was very frustrating.
I mean, it's bad when the national announcers are saying that's a crap call.
Yeah,
and then you have
especially against the Bills and Patriots. They never care for us. Like, they're never defending us in the national.
That's just it. It was to the point where the Mark Kelso on radio walked away from the mic for a little bit because the calls were that bad.
At least who cares?
Another one, how do you not call offsides consistently when they're lining up a yard past the line of scrimmage?
And coming in, anticipating the snap, the center needs to do something about giving away the snap when it's about to happen because the Patriots were almost in the backfield.
But that's just it. It wasn't the center. They're actually lining up a yard on past the ball. That's not legal in any level of football.
I mentioned in passing before, but whenever you see Belichick on the sidelines, he is always working the referees. And he's in their ear. And Shan Gailey, I don't know if I've ever seen him talking to a referee. I think.
You know what though? That might just be the camera, the slided camera, because they're always going to focus on Belichick because he's a household name.
But you don't see. I don't get the perception, and you'll be at the game on Thursday. Keep an eye on Chan for me, maybe. But I don't see him as the type who's going to be working the refs for every single advantage that he can get throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, and I understand that. I mean, as a coach for a couple sports, I try and work the officials where and when possible. Yeah, that was inbounds, or that was out by a foot.
Mm-hmm.
That's my advantage there.
But I think the refs are afraid to get things wrong against Belichick and have to hear it.
But that's just it. They shouldn't be. I rather would have the replacement refs in. Yes, I'm saying it. I'd rather have the scab refs back in because you know what? They sucked, but they sucked evenly for both sides.
And that's the best we can hope for as Bills fans, right?
Well, here's the one that really killed me about Belichick. Twice in one drive, Fitz gets hit helmet to helmet. The first one was not called. The second one was blatantly obvious, and he's arguing it. I don't know how you cannot argue it. If you're leading with your helmet and you hit the quarterback's head, knock the helmet off, it should be 15 yards. Fitz was right to scream at Brandon Spikes for that. And Belichick should have had no argument. As a coach, if one of my kids is wrong, I'll openly admit it, pull the kid off, and go, hey, relax. That's just being a coach there. Belichick should have made sure that Spikes was basically grabbed by his face mask and chewed out for giving up 15 yards. That's being a coach. That all said, 21 points directly or semi-directly came from those botched calls. When the Bills scored, 31 points yesterday? And they're having the officials give away 21. You got to give the offense credit. They did a hell of a job yesterday. Defense, yeah, they have their issues, but New England's a good enough team that they shouldn't have to be given advantages like that.
New England's defense was giving up like 12 to like 20 yards to Fitzpatrick just based on the fact that he hasn't been able to complete those passes all season long.
And he was doing it
he was
yesterday.
taking advantage of it. And
yeah.
I mean, he had enough time to really step up in the pocket. I mean, you saw him like grimacing, throwing that ball, the 12 yards. A throw that shouldn't be hard for an NFL quarterback, but he was gunning him in there.
You know what? He was hitting him on the outside as well. The only thing that would really hurt was at the end, T.J. Graham ran the wrong route. And, well, you know what happens there.
That interception was not surprising at all.
It wasn't, and of course you have a rookie who's not running what he's supposed to be running. Hopefully he learns or he gets cut next year, one or the other.
All right, well, for this upcoming week we'll do
a separate show, yeah.
But the Bills suck.
They do. Go Sabres.
Go Sabres.
Go hockey.
Please go Sabres.